Chapter 20: Israel in the 21st Century. History of Israel, a nation of paradox on a hot July morning in Tel Aviv. The Mediterranean air hummed with a mixture of salt, car exhaust, and the chatter of young Israelis clustered in cafes, laptops glowing under parasols. The Wi-Fi was free, the espresso strong, and the conversation spilled easily between Hebrew, English, and Russian. Just a few blocks away in discreet offices near Rothschild Boulevard, venture capitalists scanned pitches from 20-something entrepreneurs who dreamed not of carving kibbutz. Farms from rocky soil as their grandparents once did, but of building the next billion-dollar startup. Yet only an hour's drive south, in the dusty expanse near Gaza, Israeli soldiers stood alert behind concrete fortifications, eyes trained on the horizon, listening for the whine of rockets that could split the sky at any moment. The paradox of Israel in the 21st century was laid bare, a society at once deeply anxious and profoundly inventive, caught between perpetual security dilemmas and a dazzling spirit of creation that had earned it the nickname Startup Nation. This is the story of a country navigating its newest chapter, a tale of innovation and division, of diplomacy rewritten, and of conflicts both old and startlingly new. The main narrative, technology, and innovation. The 21st century dawned with Israel already boasting a remarkable reputation for technological ingenuity. But what unfolded in the following decades bordered on the astonishing. Israel, a nation of barely 10 million people, became a global laboratory of innovation. The roots of this transformation lay in a confluence of necessity and creativity. The pressing need for survival had always forced Israelis to innovate, whether in agriculture, defense, or communication. From the mid-2000s, Tel Aviv emerged as a hub second only to Silicon Valley in startups per capita. Walk down the streets of Herzliya Pichuak or Ra'anana, and you would find unassuming office blocks that housed companies. Pioneering everything from cyber defense systems to medical breakthroughs, it's the story of ways the navigation app created by Israeli developers and eventually sold to Google for over $1 billion became emblematic of the nation's entrepreneurial drive. A solution born from the frustration of sitting in traffic turned into a tool reshaping global mobility. Behind the glamour of acquisitions and IPOs, there was a deeper national narrative. Military service in elite units like Unit 8200 funneled thousands of tech-savvy young people into civilian life, armed with a unique skill set and intersection of coding, improvisation, and strategic problem-solving. For many Western visitors, it was startling to realize that the young woman pouring their cappuccino in the morning might be the same one. A year earlier had been monitoring cyber threats for the army, deciphering encrypted signals, or even hacking into hostile networks. Israel's agricultural technologies, once focused on survival farming, expanded to global impact. From drip irrigation systems that could turn arid fields in Africa fertile to water desalination plants along its own Mediterranean coast that rendered Israel water self-sufficient, the country recast itself as a pioneer in sustainable solutions for a warming planet. The desert, once an enemy, was being conquered with mathematics and ingenuity. Social and cultural diversity, a mosaic of identities. Yet beneath this triumphal narrative lay the messy, intricate reality of Israel's social fabric. 21st century Israel was not a homogeneous startup nation, but a kaleidoscope of communities, sometimes harmonious, sometimes fractious. Jewish Israelis themselves were far from uniform. The grandchildren of Ashkenazi immigrants from Poland and Germany mingled uneasily with Mizrahi Jews whose parents had fled Baghdad, Damascus, and Casablanca in the mid-20th century. Waves of immigration in the 1990s from the crumbling Soviet Union reshaped entire neighborhoods, bringing with them Russian newspapers, Orthodox churches for those who had converted, and a distinct cultural assertiveness. Meanwhile, Ethiopian Jews rescued in dramatic airlifts in the 1980s and 1990s struggled for equality, their dark skin marking them as both proudly Jewish and painfully marginalized. Then there were the Arab citizens of Israel, roughly 20% of the population. They lived in towns like Al-Fam and Nazareth, carried Israeli passports, voted in elections, and sent their children to Hebrew-speaking universities. Yet many also bore the legacy of 1948 as a wound, descendants of families who had not fled but now lived as a minority in a Jewish state. Their place in Israeli society was contested, suspended between civic participation and cultural alienation. The fault lines of diversity ran deeper in religion. In secular Tel Aviv, same-sex couples walked hand in hand along Rothschild Boulevard. Startups offered vegan menus, and Friday night was a time not for Sabbath prayers, but for bars and beaches. In Jerusalem's Mishiarim, however, ultra-Orthodox Haredim crowded narrow alleys. Wrapped in black coats, clinging fiercely to traditions, often resisting conscription or the encroachment of modernity. Between these worlds, political battles erupted over education, army service, and marriage laws fault lines that would define Israel's internal debates as much as its external wars. Regional diplomacy and the Abraham Accords. Diplomacy in the 21st century began in the familiar pattern. Israel surrounded by suspicion and hostility. But then, in 2020, the world witnessed a seismic shift that seemed at first almost inconceivable. The Abraham Accords, brokered by the United States, brought Israel into open diplomatic relations with the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and later Sudan. The images were extraordinary. Israeli businessmen stepping off planes in Abu Dhabi, kosher food served in Dubai hotels, and direct flights from Tel Aviv to Manama. For many Israelis, it felt like the long-awaited peace dividend that Oslo had promised, but never fully delivered. Unlike Egypt and Jordan, whose treaties with Israel had been cold and pragmatic, the Gulf nations seemed eager to embrace Israel not just politically, but commercially and technologically. The motivations were complex. For the UAE and Bahrain, aligning with Israel meant accessing its technology and defense industries, but it also signaled a united front against Iran, the shadow looming over the Gulf as much as Israel.
Ow!
For Israel, it was validation, a reminder that it could transcend the paralysis of the Palestinian stalemate and still forge peace. The name Abraham was not accidentally gestured toward the shared patriarch of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, a symbolic bridge across centuries of division. And yet the Accords did not erase the Palestinian question. Critics argued that Arab regimes had abandoned the cause of Palestinian statehood, normalizing relations with Israel without demanding concessions on settlements or occupation. For Palestinians, watching Israel embrace Dubai while their own checkpoints remained, it was a bitter reminder of their exclusion. Still, the Accords marked a rare moment in which Israel's regional integration seemed not only possible, but unfolding before the world's eyes. Security challenges and modern geopolitics, yet peace in Abu Dhabi did not translate into peace in Gaza or southern Lebanon. Israel's security dilemmas remained relentless, reshaped but never vanquished. The second intifada of the early 2000s had already scarred Israeli society with suicide bombings in Jerusalem cafes and buses. By the mid-2000s, Hamas's takeover of Gaza ensured that rocket fire into southern Israel became a recurring terror. Towns like Sderot lived under the constant wail of sirens, where parents had 15 seconds to rush children into bomb shelters. To the north, Hezbollah entrenched itself in Lebanon, amassing rockets supplied by Iran. The 2006 Lebanon War was a grim foretaste of future conflicts. Israeli towns pounded, Lebanese civilians caught in the crossfire, and neither side emerging victorious. Cybersecurity emerged as the new frontier. Israeli intelligence services warned that the next war might not only involve rockets, but attacks on banks, water systems, or airports through keystrokes rather than bombs. Israel responded by investing heavily in cyber defense, launching some of the most sophisticated operations in modern espionages, some of which reportedly targeted Iran's nuclear facilities. Iran itself remained the central obsession. Its pursuit of nuclear technology became the focal point of Israel's strategic calculus. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, addressing the United Nations in 2012, famously held up a cartoon bomb diagram warning of Iran's nuclear red line. To many Israelis, Iran's ambitions were existential in a way no other threat was. A state whose leaders openly vowed to erase Israel, now flirting with nuclear weapons. Israel also faced the paradox of being a military power whose economy relied on open borders and trade. The more it integrated into global commerce, exporting software, medical devices, defense systems, the more it had to defend against boycotts, sanctions, and diplomatic isolation. Security in the 21st century was not just about tanks and rockets, but about narrative legitimacy and the struggle over public opinion in universities, its parliaments, and media screens worldwide. The story of Israel in the 21st century is not just one of survival or innovation, but of contradictions that demand to be held together in tension. On one hand, Israel became indispensable in global technology, earning admiration from Silicon Valley and venture capitalists. On the other, it faced deep criticism for its occupation of Palestinian territories, sparking protests from London to San Francisco. Its social diversity was both a strength and a strain, fueling creativity through cultural fusion while igniting political battles between secular and religious, Jewish and Arab, immigrant and veteran. The Abraham Accords revealed that the Middle East's map was not frozen in the animosities of 1948, that Arab states could reimagine alliances based on pragmatism and shared threats. Yet they also underlined a haunting truth. Peace with states was achievable, but peace with peoples remained elusive. Security challenges evolved from guerrilla wars to rocket barrages to cyber threats, each demanding new strategies, each pulling Israel deeper into the paradox of being at once hyper-vulnerable and hyper-armed. In the 21st century, Israel stood as a country suspended between triumph and turmoil. Its entrepreneurs reshaped the digital world. Its farmers turned deserts green. Its diplomats rewrote regional alliances. Yet the echoes of conflict never receded. The dream of coexistence remained fragile. And the nation's soul wrestled with what it meant to be both a Jewish state and a democracy in a fractured land. Perhaps the most enduring image of modern Israel is not the missile defense system intercepting rockets, or the skyscrapers of Tel Aviv's tech district, nor the signing ceremonies of the Abraham Accords, but rather the sight of a young Israeli coding in a cafe with headphones on, while a soldier nearby keeps watch with rifle in hand. One builds, the other defends. Together, they embody the essence of Israel in the 21st century, a country forever on guard, forever creating, forever searching for peace that remains just beyond reach.